Our guest today needs no introduction. He is a digital and social media leader and is considered a pioneer in the blockchain technology world of Switzerland. He is also a serial entrepreneur with more than 20 years of experience. He is also a regular keynote speaker at various international seminars such as TEDx and leading universities. As a strong believer in delivering a value rather than delivering a product, he coaches and provides consultancy services to brands and small businesses on creating impactful marketing campaigns. Please welcome Herman Ramirez. Hello, Herman. Thank you so much for your time today with us. Very happy.
Buenos dias, Sveta. Buenos dias. A pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the kind introduction.
No, thank you. So let's start from the beginning. You are a strong campaigner for digital transformation since its inception, and it can't be more relevant than now. Be it for Corona or globalization, the need for digitalization is much severe or serious in current situation. Finally, the momentum is gathering and at rapid pace. So, how do you feel about it? And how do you think this will change Switzerland's business diaspora?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. I've had the pleasure of being involved in the digital revolution from the beginning, starting before Google was founded. And it has been over 25 years in the meantime since digital technologies have been slowly coming into our lives. And what we're observing right now, driven by the current pandemic, is a very strong momentum behind the need for digital transformation. What is really sad, I must say, is that it's the context in which it's taking place. Obviously, the current pandemic is a terrible catastrophe that's happening around the world, with a lot of people suffering and just a lot of people dying from it. It has, if we look at it from a purely digital technology perspective, and it is indeed, though, accelerating the recognition of businesses in its need for adapting and incorporating digital technologies. The need for transformation is a major challenge, and so far, what many companies have been doing is basically adding digital as part of their strategies. I tend to say, though, that sticking wings on a caterpillar doesn't make a butterfly out of it. Transformation is metamorphosis, and it does require a profound change. And this is what the current situation is basically accelerating, since many businesses have had to reinvent themselves. They're looking at digital technologies and their digital abilities with totally new eyes, not as something that you can do on top, but as something that might become core to your operation.
Yes, true. So, in the same context, 99% of companies in Switzerland are SMEs, like small to medium enterprises with fewer than 250 employees. And most of these businesses fall under service sector. And many owners, they do not usually come from the technology background. So this is going to be a huge challenge for them. So, and the dire necessity to change from, as you said, it's not just another medium of doing a business, but actually becoming a core of business processing or business transaction. So how should SMEs approach this challenge? Can you suggest us a few or recommend us few measures, like baby steps for entrepreneurs, and without being feeling overwhelmed?
Yes. Well, first of all, something that I like to clarify is that digital has only limited things to do with technology. A lot of people think digital is about technology, or digital transformation is about technology, but that is not the case. What I always say is that technology is the catalyzer for the change, but the true change is much more profound. Digital technologies are changing the way consumers, users, customers, citizens, the whole society views and interacts with the world and with one another. Digital is first and foremost a matter of mindset. So if you do not have the technological skills, there are plenty of experts out there that will be able to help you implementing a digital transformation program or deploying digital technologies in your company. But the most important change is in the mind. And if you embrace that reality, what SMEs, what companies in general need to do is to try to understand how are digital technologies affecting and changing the behaviors and the way of taking decisions, the way of informing themselves, the way of interacting and transacting of customers, of users, of prospects around the world, and then try to design experiences that allow that to reflect on the new nature of consumers and prospects and users' habits. That in itself, it does not require technological implementation. It is more the redesign of a new experience. And that is what I would recommend companies to try to put the focus. The actual implementation needs to, of course, be done. And of course, there is technology, an element of technology that is important behind it. But that is the least of the challenges. The technological challenge isn't what will make the success. It is the change in the mindset and transforming a business from delivering a service or selling a product into trying to create experiences that incorporate the new reality of how consumers and users behave and see and interact and inform themselves and see the world today. That's the most important aspect.
Okay. So, talking about consumer behaviors, consumers are now much more cognizant and cautious of their purchasing habits. And as you said, there is likely a subject of change in their purchasing habits. As an expert, what kind of changes or behavioral changes do you see in consumers, and how can entrepreneurs address that and maximize their value?
Mhm. Well, one of the first things that digital technologies have or are changing is the way consumers inform themselves about products and interact with one another. In the past, it used to be, if you want to put it that way, simple, because companies were the only ones who were able to communicate with the world. Now, we no longer have pure consumers or customers in our world. We have product creators, we have reviewers, we have super users, we have journalists, bloggers, influencers, and people interact and communicate with one another. The way we inform ourselves and the ability to gather information before taking any kind of purchase decision has exploded. And people have become the new media. And actually, what most companies oftentimes do is to try and use the new digital channels as means of communicating their old, boring advertising messages that no one wants to hear. What they need to do is to change that mindset as to not using digital channels as a new welcome method of communicating the same old stuff they used to communicate, which isn't creating an impact, but trying to find relevant ways to become part of the conversation, to build trust, to build credibility, and to provide value to their users, to their consumers, to their prospects, to customers, to whatever their target groups and stakeholders are. The key consists no longer in making noise and reaching the target. The key consists on building relevant and in the marketplace, becoming a relevant brand and offering a relevant offer. And relevance consists on visibility on the one side, yes, but also value and credibility. Just reaching your customer with your advertising message is not going to cut it. You need to become part of the conversation, and you need to focus on providing value beyond the need of you selling a product.
True. And you also said it's not about creating noise, but creating trust. So don't you think because of all these channels, there, as you mentioned, there are so many channels of advertisement now, like the bloggers or influencers, or as you said, super users. There's so much information out there. How can an entrepreneur with his product or with his service can stand out or sustain such huge competition?
Conversations are what drives ultimately purchase decisions, and it's not just about reaching people with your product or with your message, but actually becoming part of the conversation. And conversations are based on value, and conversations are what build trust. And that's pretty much what social media and most digital channels are all about. If you gather my attention and then try to tell me how amazing your product is and that I should buy it, that's advertising. And that's what people are turning their backs on. That's why we use skip ad on YouTube. That's why we have pop-up blockers and advertising blockers and all of those things. We've become pretty much on the one side allergic, but on the other side also absolutely resistant to advertising. So the way of providing value is by creating relevant and interesting stories that are around the product that you're trying to sell or to get across to your target group, and by having interesting things to say around it. So you are delivering a new payment solution, for example, and you want people to use your payment solution. And don't tell me, use my payment solution and I'll give you a 15% discount and try it today. No, try to explain to me, try to demonstrate your expertise in how payment and transactions are changing in the world. Try to put yourselves into my shoes and try to reflect on a story of how the life is changing and how your product could potentially become part of it. Do not sell a product, sell an experience. People don't buy a shampoo, they buy, shiny hair. They use a product to basically address a problem or tap on an opportunity. People don't buy a bottle of wine. People buy a memorable moment with their friends to share, or an opportunity to unwind after a hard day of work. That's what people buy. And those are stories, those are experiences, those are promises. They are not products. And that is what that's what companies and brands need to understand. They need to turn it around from being focused on the product and the technical specifications and how it works into what does it do for me? How is it providing value into my life and embedded into what I need and not what you're trying to reach?
Interesting. Thanks. So you are among the first to support the evolution of blockchain technology, and your passion and beliefs are strongly seen in your talks and publications as well. So yet on mainstream, the popularity for blockchain technology has never been linear. It has its ups and downs like a sine wave. So in the light of current crisis, do you think it's going to change? Can this lead to a paradigm shift in the finance industry?
I do not think that we're going to see an immediate spike and a revolution in the usage of technology. It's going to take blockchain technology. It's going to take probably longer than many of us would hope or expect. The implications of the usage of blockchain technology are very profound, since it, again, and this happens constantly with every single of the different digital waves and digital revolutions, it provides a change in the mindset and a change in behavior, and that takes a very long time. What technology is capable of doing today does not mean that it will find a way into our lives and into our usage right away. And currently, we're still at the very, very beginning of this new, relatively new, it's 10 years old, revolution driven by blockchain technology. And it has the potential to profoundly change the way human beings transact with one another. And as such, that will require a lot of trust, a lot of solid use cases behind. And currently, the technology is still working on being regulated, being understood, being scalable, being fast enough. And something that I always criticize in the blockchain space is we speak a lot about the technology and same as I mentioned before in regards to the previous digital transformations or the digital revolutions that have happened in our lives, the focus should never be on the how. The focus should be on the what and on the why. So don't tell me that the technology is capable of doing this or that, but try to explain to me why is it going to improve my life? And the moment we stop talking about the technology and we start using it, that's the moment where this technology will see an increase in adoption at global scale. And until then, we're going to be talking a little bit to ourselves. So we need to demystify the technology, and we need to make it usable. Just to give you an example, most people in the world don't know how the Google algorithm works. Right? I have no idea exactly how it works. We provide SEO services to our clients, and of course there are experts. There are a few experts that actually know how it works and how to improve your offering for it. However, most people don't, and still most people use Google every single day. It's why we use things and what we do with them. It's not how they work that really rocks the world of most people. And we're still too much focused on how the technology works, and we're still too little focused on what you can do with it and why it's relevant.
So is there an estimation like 10 years from now it's going to be normal, or do you have an estimation for?
That's the $1 million, or you should probably say the million Bitcoin question. And I do not know. I sympathize a lot with a sentence from a very clever person that said that we overestimate the power of technology in the short term, and we underestimate the power of technology in the long term. And I tend to agree with that. I've experienced it at the beginning of the internet revolution, and then when mobile phones and social media came on board, etc. And it's what we are experiencing right now with the blockchain technology. My personal bet is that it's going to take longer than we probably think. So if you say 10 years, that could be a good estimate, maybe even longer than that. And then one day we will wake up and it will become part of our lives. And until then, it will be, to a certain extent, kind of a struggle. So it's not an easy or an obvious massive global adoption. First of all, we need to develop the proper scalability and speed of transactions. We need to demystify it, and we need to embed it into relevant solutions and relevant offerings, and then just see it become the norm and focus on the advantages that it brings, as opposed to the fact that it's an amazing new technology.
Do you see Switzerland as a front runner in blockchain technology, or do you think it's a technology dinosaur in the concept?
No, absolutely. I do see Switzerland clearly as a front runner and as one of the leading hubs in the world for the development of blockchain technology and blockchain technology application. It has seen from the very beginning an incredible amount of traction, and first of all, by entrepreneurs that have come and built their operations and business around Switzerland, also through regulation. I do think that the effort being put, of course, as an entrepreneur, nothing can ever be fast enough. But if we think about the level of regulatory clarity and the advancements that are happening, as well as the whole building of an ecosystem with technical experts, legal experts, communications and marketing experts, entrepreneurs, etc. Yes, absolutely, Switzerland is on the forefront of this of the blockchain movement, and one of the most relevant spots in the world for it to come to fruition. Many companies, many significant operations have their roots and their headquarters here in Switzerland, and yes, definitely Switzerland is one of the global leaders in this revolution. I see that as an incredible opportunity for Switzerland as a country to play an important role in this movement, and I'm really happy, to be honest, that it is happening here, and that the government, the companies and regulators, entrepreneurs, and etc. are supporting this ecosystem.
Good to know. So, in your coming to digital revolutions, in your TED talk, you mentioned there are three digital revolutions. The first being the internet revolution, the second being the social revolution, like Facebook, Instagram. Third is the economic revolution, like blockchain, Bitcoin. So, do you think there can be a chance of erupting a fourth digital revolution? And if so, what would be?
Well, in this model that I developed basically explains the principles of human and economic coexistence around three core different pillars: information, the need for information, the need for interaction, and transactions. Those are the three key elements based on which every single economy and basically society evolves. We inform ourselves, we interact with one another, and we transact with one another. Those are the three key pillars. And therefore, as such, in itself, technologically, with the internet of information and our ability to communicate with one another through smartphones, through social networks, etc., which is the interaction part, and eventually with blockchain and fintech and other technologies providing us for the possibility of transaction, the circle is complete. So these three revolutions in themselves provide the core backbone of what society in our economy could be. And as such, within that same context, there is no need for a fourth, and therefore, then there's not going to be a fourth revolution in that sense. However, I do think that there is a further wave. We could call it a fourth revolution, or just the next step in evolution. I do think that that we are going to be witnessing that, and that is artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence will, of course, and is already being used today. There are many discussions, and I'm not going to bore your viewers or your readers with that at this stage, whether what we have today are super fast computers or is actually artificial intelligence, nor the fact that the proper understanding of intelligence is yet to be defined. Massive wave of technological evolution or revolution that will hit our lives will be around artificial intelligence, especially if and when sought for a singularity moment arrives, which is a moment in time that experts put closer into the present or further into the future. Some people say it's never going to happen, in which we manage to create self-aware machines. So a machine, an artificial intelligence, an AI that is self-aware, not only capable of learning, machine learning exists already, but actually self-aware of its existence. That moment will definitely be probably overshadowing anything that humanity has ever invented, and it's probably more powerful than the fire, the wheel, or even television. So if we want to count those as the big inventions of humanity. And however, the real, actual, profound revolution behind will not be driven by the efficiency that the current understanding of AI provides to business, to information, interaction, and transaction, but eventually through the discovery of the so-called singularity.
Very interesting. And just to be clear, our viewers are never bored of information. They are always hungry for information. So, and coming back to the revolution topic, so do you think it will take lesser time or more time for this revolution to arrive, considering the present context?
Consider the present context. I do think that the crisis in which the world has gotten itself into through the pandemic that we are experiencing and suffering from is indeed accelerating the need of having of using technology and bringing it into part of our lives in a faster and stronger way. something that humanity has shown over basically it since ever, because it's part of who we are as human beings, is an incredible ability to become profoundly creative when faced with a massive challenge. What is a pity is that we sometimes don't move our butts, basically because lives might or might not, might be quite comfortable. But the moment we are put against the wall and we're put into the need to resolve the problem, humanity does have an important ability to become creative and to become, to get into action mode and to transform things fast. And I do, and that is on the one side when we think of this pandemic, but also in the context of other challenges like climate change that we are all suffering from. And it is always scary to think that it needs to get to a point where our lives are in immediate and obvious danger, that we really move our butts and start acting. But when it does, we do. And that's why I do remain optimistic. And yes, that's why what I'm observing right now, that technological advances are accelerating based on the need for them to accelerate. And after being years preaching through articles, through projects in companies I consult, on stage when I do keynotes, etc., preaching about the need to embrace technology, and talking about the love story between technology and humanity, which is the way I like to describe it. Well, it had to come to this for some in the world to actually stand up and move. But people are standing up and people are moving.
Yes. So, do you think, in addition with climate change, medical industry also is in need of a dire technological intervention?
I am not an expert in the field of or in the medical industry myself. Regardless of what industry you are in, I do think though, or I have never seen a business, a company, an industry, a field, a market in which the proper understanding and the proper deployment of digital strategies and digital technologies has not had a profound and significant impact in a positive way to its existence. Mm-hmm. One, not knowing the industry, as I said, but a feeling that I do have in general is that in the medical and pharmaceutical industry, and I say this as an observer, not as an expert, the impression that I have is that there tends to be an important level of competition among each other. Given the amount of time and effort that it takes to develop a new treatment or to create a new drug or anything, and the cost that companies have to embrace to do that, I would hope that, and from what we're observing in the current efforts to develop a solution or a vaccine or cures or remedies to the current pandemic, I do have the feeling that there seems to be a stronger sense of need for collaboration on an international level, on a cross-company level, between academia and corporations, etc. And I think that is extremely positive and to be welcomed. And I would hope that beyond the solving of this pandemic, some of that could remain the standard of practice for companies in the medical and pharmaceutical field to not only show their responsibility towards shareholders and towards profits, but actually be aware and be conscious and active towards their responsibility in the world or towards humanity. Because
a recent report said 77% of self-employed individuals in Switzerland have had a negative impact because of the pandemic. That is huge and devastating. Do you see any ray of hope for these individuals? What are the opportunities? Are there any opportunities to reverse this impact?
There are always opportunities. First of all, if we think about the reality in the marketplace, more and more people are moving towards being self-employed, as the nature of the relationship between employers and employees has been evolving and changing over the last 2 or 3 decades. So the reality of being self-employed is going to be is going to have a much higher penetration than it currently has. In the years to come, I refer to the future of work as a market for intellectual mercenaries, and I do expect most people, or a significant number of people, to be self-employed and to collaborate with one another rather than being employees of a company. So as such, what we need, obviously, or people that are self-employed need to be aware of, is that they are the first ones to be let go whenever a crisis or a challenge comes. And that's part of the reality. That is, it's part of the nature of being self-employed. Rather than seeing that as a negative opportunity, as a negative implication, you need to start, or self-employed people need to find ways to position themselves as experts in their fields and be visible in the marketplace. In that context, personal branding and the being present in the marketplace, providing value, creating content, sharing it with others, and participating in the conversations, because we have an open marketplace. If you think of platforms like LinkedIn, or in Switzerland and Germany, Xing plays a role, Twitter, and in general, all the different platforms that are there. You can create videos through YouTube. You can write articles and post them on a blog. You can share your thoughts and provide value. Create your brand, demonstrate your expertise, and communicate with your prospects through all these channels, as opposed to maybe feeling the pain for the loss of a client. All the time that everybody gets freed when they lose a client should be used in trying to build and position their brand, not only to getting a new client. Because if you manage to build a personal brand as a self-employed person, you will always have a stream of business coming. If you focus from one client and try to go to the next and just get the next client and maybe offer a discount so that you get the gig, you're going to have a problem immediately solved, but you're not going to build something. It's not about offering your services or selling products. It's about building brands. Mm-hmm. And brands do require that effort. I do think that it's an important opportunity to not reinvent yourself, but actually define who you are, define what makes you special. Like I like to say it in my trainings in this context of personal branding or thought leadership. What do you want to be famous for? Try to identify what makes you unique, what you want to be famous for, and use the platform, the possibilities that digital technologies offer you to try and build that brand, as opposed to just go and run to try and get a new client right away. People should be actually providing or focusing on working on projects and collaborating together. And that's what's going to be, in my opinion, the future of work. And that's what self-employment is very strongly connected with, ultimately.
As a serial entrepreneur, tell me, what kind of business ideas interest you?
What an interesting question. I like to focus on ideas or projects that have the potential to impact people's life in a positive way. And this doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be an NGO, right? You can have a business that creates a positive impact on society, on humanity, on the economy, and still be profitable. And one thing doesn't fight the other. But if you're just focusing on making profits, it's fair enough. But I think it's boring.
So is there a particular sector that you think has the potential of tremendous growth opportunities?
I believe that all sorts of technologies that will help us or will will make things easier and smoother, and simplify our lives. Could be or are a very interesting field to look into. Right now, we're living extremely complex lives, and something that the current corona situation has showed us is how fragile we are in general. So any kind of technology or any kind of product or service that makes the lives of people easier, and therefore allows them to be free of some of the burden of the complexity of today's life, and eventually also just be able to spend some more time with their family or loved ones. And those are, in my opinion, promising and interesting fields to look into. And we're talking about efficiency, we're talking about processes, we're talking about logistics, we're talking about experiences in general. That is an interesting aspect or an interesting field that I believe will always have potential. If you make things easier, simpler, and more rewarding, and therefore declutter our lives. Our lives are so complicated and so cluttered and so full of everything. If we manage to get that fixed a little bit, then we have a winner.
Yeah. So you are a renowned keynote speaker, often giving lectures on branding, marketing, social media, and also blockchain technology. So can you share us few experiences? Like, did you see any difference between students and entrepreneurs in the way they pose questions or their expectations or their mindset?
Entrepreneurs in general, my experience when interacting with entrepreneurs is that they tend to be very much focused on how can I apply that to my business now, not tomorrow, now. So that's pretty much the direction in which they're looking to go. When it comes to students, in general, my experience is, although I've had the privilege of teaching students from universities all the way to MBA, so it does depend a little bit on their age and position in their career. But the younger the students are, the more I have the experience they are interested in the overall economic and societal implications of things. So kind of more the bigger picture. Interestingly, the younger people get, that's probably a good way to put it, the younger people get, the bigger the spectrum is that they're trying to look into, and the further into the future they are open or focused on. And obviously, if you're an entrepreneur, your focus, your spectrum is my business, and your time horizon is today. And, if you're maybe a younger student that still has his or her entire career ahead of him or her, and might not fully know exactly what they're going to be doing, they want to see the whole big picture, and they want to look far into the future. Yeah, that's probably the best way of separating those two.
How do you adapt to these two mindsets? How do you address their expectations when you are at workshops?
What drove me to become an entrepreneur and basically the reason why I was stamped as a digital pioneer is my innate and unstoppable curiosity of exploring the big picture and look far into the future. I'm fascinated by how technology and humanity will evolve together, and how technology will be impacting our lives tomorrow and far into the future. And I've been dealing with the concepts of future of work or personal branding, or many other topics that are starting to now become very relevant, social sales that are starting now to become relevant to many people. I've been dealing with them and exploring them for many years. So that curiosity makes me a lifetime student, if you want. So I will always sympathize and embrace that curiosity, because that is a little bit what drives me. On the other side, as an entrepreneur, I've I've had the privilege of being able to build 7 different companies and accompany dozens and dozens of other startups and companies. I've also worked in large corporations, so I understand the need to get things done. And I've been in that position. I am in that position, and therefore I not only have the visions, but I also have the tools to implement those things today. So as such, it's not actually a need to adapt or anything. Or yes, you need obviously to adapt to the audience, but it's not something that comes difficult, because in my heart, in my mind, I am a forever student. But in my everyday life and my reality, I am an entrepreneur and I am a doer. And therefore, I can tell you exactly how you can build a brand and exactly how to develop step by step a winning strategy to create relevance for your market, or how to increase your sales, or how to communicate with different audiences, or how to reach to investors. But what I actually love is to tell you how things are going to look like in 10 years.
Wow, great. So let us talk about your expertise, your companies, the relevance
Mm-hmm.
group and Spark and strategy. You're
Mm-hmm.
already leading a way, the futuristic way, in terms of generating or developing innovative strategies for your clients. But also tell me, has COVID had any impact on your consulting or coaching services?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, a lot of what I do is public speaking, doing workshops and trainings for companies. That's to a certain extent the focus of Spark and strategy. And that has, of course, been affected. I mean, so that, of course, has had an impact. Some of it has moved to online and digital. So I've done lectures, I've done keynotes through video conferencing and so on, which is interesting because it allows you to reach a much broader audience, right, without anyone having to travel into the same room. But of course, the human beings have 5 senses, and never mind how powerful these technologies are, there is a certain something that is missing or that you can provide when you are in the room, right? And you are seeing, for example, you see me from the chest up right now. And if we were in the room, I'd be running around and waving my hands and so on, and passionately including people into the conversation. And today, when you do an online conference, everyone is on mute, so you cannot ask questions to raise your hand, or at least it's not the same. But it is very, very powerful and extremely efficient, to be honest. So, but yes, back to your question, that aspect has changed or shifted or seen an impact. In regards to what we do at Relevance House, working with companies and startups to very often times, or most of the time, but in general, companies that are looking into emerging technologies, into blockchain, or into disrupting a particular market field through innovation and disruption. Some projects have seen obviously some challenges in terms of funding, and therefore have been slowing down or put on hold. But in general, if we're looking to, or if you're dealing with entrepreneurs, if you're dealing with people that are trying to change the world, in general, they do not want a global pandemic to stand on their way, and they will find solutions to it. And as such, we're blessed and lucky to have some really interesting and exciting projects driven by entrepreneurial minds and or entrepreneurs that are keeping us very busy and having, which is for me very important, a very steep learning curve.
Great. So this brings to my last question. So since you are such a great expert, can you suggest some knowledge materials to our viewers, like for beginners with beginner's knowledge, to get trained on digital and social media transformation?
And when it comes to social media, I am a great believer in trying it. So rather than reading about it, trying it. So actually, two pieces of advice in general. First, focusing on how a technology works and learning how a technology works is not what I recommend. Why it exists and what it means for the process, for society, for humanity, for your business, for whatever it is that you're trying to look into. Why and what? Try to focus on those. When I do keynotes or lectures, I try to always first, I go, depending on the time we have. If I do trainings, I of course dive deep into sharing tricks that people might not know, or tips and actionable things. But I always try to first focus on why is it relevant and what does it really mean. So if you understand, as I said, not the technology, but the reason for the technology and the impact of the technology, then the rest is just, then you'll have the right mindset. And if you have the right mindset, you go about it, then the rest is a matter of practice. And it's quite easy because, companies are clever and design products in a way that they are intuitive. And they're just, it's really, it's a cliche, but it's learning by doing. And that's what works best. So if you're looking for knowledge, try to look for the understanding and the right mindset behind a technology, not on how it works. And if you're looking to learn how it works, then try to focus on trying it yourself. And that's the best way you will learn, and you will become part of your own arsenal and of your own success.
So experimentation is the key.
Yes, the right mindset, maybe some inspiration, but then experimentation. Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Herman, for all the information and all the knowledge share. And
my pleasure. Thank you.
We are really honored for your time, and all the best with all the projects that you're working with, and looking forward to many interesting, enlightening talks and publications from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time, for your interest, for all the great questions. And if you need anything, you know where to find me.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good day. Bye.